Hello, and welcome to this webinar, operated and sponsored by Real ID. For your convenience, please turn your cameras and microphones off during the webinar. For questions and comments, please use the chat located in the center of the bottom of your screen. The webinar will begin momentarily. Hello, and welcome to this webinar, operated and sponsored by Real ID. For your convenience, please turn your cameras and microphones off during the webinar. Real ID is a passionate and committed team. Through entertainment technology, we contribute to our clients' social and professional development. We offer a comprehensive service that responds to new challenges and has established our active international presence. We provide our clients with the right balance between their needs and our platform's optimal performance. We seek precise solutions for the continued use of legacy systems and, where appropriate, development of required applications. Real ID has grown thanks to the port and maritime industry's safety and security needs. Each of our modules are managed by a simulated artificial intelligence called Sole, capable of learning scenarios and finding solutions according to the end user's requirements. Hello, and welcome to this webinar, operated and sponsored by Real ID. For your convenience, please turn your cameras and microphones off during the webinar. For questions and comments, please use the chat located in the center of the bottom of your screen. The webinar will begin momentarily. For your convenience,
Sí, ahorita voy a
please turn
intentar
your
con ese
cameras and
enlace. Yo me
microphones off
refiero a
during the
cuando
webinar.
siempre utilizamos las 3 computadoras de aquí de la institución, en ninguna
The
me están
webinar will
permitiendo
begin
entrar
momentarily.
y quiero entrar en alguna de ellas a otro enlace o al enlace que nos tienen aquí predeterminado debido a que tengo 2 exámenes más de CES, aparte de delgado angulo que están en línea.
Real ID is a passionate and committed team. Through entertainment technology, we contribute to our clients' social and professional development. We offer a comprehensive service that responds to new challenges and has established our active international presence. We provide our clients with the right balance between their needs and our platform's optimal performance. We seek precise solutions for the continued use of legacy systems and, where appropriate, development of required applications. Real ID has grown thanks to the port and maritime industry's safety and security needs. Each of our modules are managed by a simulated artificial intelligence called Sole, capable of learning scenarios and finding solutions according to the end user's requirements. Hello, and welcome to this webinar, operated and sponsored by Real ID. For your convenience, please turn your cameras and microphones off during the webinar. For questions and comments, please use the chat located in the center of the bottom of your screen. The webinar will begin momentarily. Real ID is a passionate and committed team. Through entertainment technology, we contribute to our clients' social and professional development. We offer a comprehensive service that responds to new challenges and has established our active international presence. We provide our clients with the right balance between their needs and our platform's optimal performance.
Es que no te encuentro. Es que estoy hablando por ti.
We seek precise solutions for the continued use of
No te
legacy
puedo ver el
systems
juez.
and, where appropriate, development of required applications.
Bueno. Afirma, te estoy copiando.
Real ID has grown thanks to the port and maritime industry's safety and security
Sí,
needs.
ya los estamos haciendo anfitriones y mandando a la sala. Nada más estoy ingresando para
Each
decirte
of our
que
modules
ya,
are
no,
managed by
todavía
a
no.
simulated artificial
Está
intelligence
terminando el
called
video
Sole,
para iniciar.
capable of learning scenarios and finding solutions according to the end user's requirements.
Sí, ya prácticamente estoy ahí. 2 segundos para el inicio. Termina el video y pues ingresa.
For your convenience, please turn your cameras and microphones off during the webinar. For questions and comments, please use the chat located in the center of the bottom of your screen. We will now start the webinar.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome. Welcome to today's webinar in Ports and Customs, organized by the Inter-American Committee of Ports of the Organization of American States in partnership with our strategic member, the International Port Community System Association, known by its English acronym as IPSA. It is really comforting to welcome you all today to this event that has shown that we have, interest by the people who are signing on as I speak. This is an event that we have planned in collaboration with IPSA to address the particular relationship and operations of customs on the one side and ports on the other side. It has been my experience that this port and customs relationship must be efficient, must be productive, must be communicate efficiently between both agencies in order to, provide the logistical services that should be efficient, and especially when we talk about blockchain and turnkey operations, this coordination becomes even more crucial and important. I just got this message from that's being recorded. So, like I said, this usually becomes super critical in order to ensure, the just in time and the blockchain. This relationship is very, very important, and it is in that context of trying to improve logistics, of trying to provide useful material and content and knowledge to our members and IPSAS members that the seminar takes place. As you all know, today we will have the participation of Mr. Ricardo Revino, who is Deputy Secretary General of the World Customs Organization. And he will then be, Ricardo will present, obviously, an institutional view from the WCO regarding, these operations, and especially the incorporation of new technologies and digitalization of operations into the mix. And then Ricardo will be followed by Mr. Uwe Liebschner, who is a customs expert, DBH and Customs Committee Chairman at the International Port Community System Association. And then finally, we will have the perspective of Mr. Rommel Edwards, who is the Manager for Digital Innovation and Development at Barbados Port Incorporated. And so we will have three different views of these three excellent examples. And I take this opportunity to welcome gentlemen and thank you for your participation. This event will be moderated by Mona Swoboda from the SIP Secretariat. But before I give the floor to Mona for this, I'm going to ask the chairman of the International Port Communities Association, Mr. Hans Rock, to please accompany me in welcoming everybody with a few words for the opening. Hans, the floor is yours, my friend.
Thank you, Jorge. Thank you for your opening and the words you already spoken, and mine will be in line with you, Ethan. So, ladies and gentlemen, also from my side, a warm welcome to you attending the second webinar this year organized by the Secretariat of the Inter-American Committee on Ports, SIP, and IPCSA, the International Port Community System Association. In April this year, we together organized a successful webinar on PCS in action, from development to implementation. This time, a webinar on one of the key aspects essential for a hassle-free flow of cargo in another port area. The relationship and collaboration between ports and customs is of essence to make this work. The exponential increase in the global trade and the changing dynamics on the international supply chain have created new demands and perspectives on the role of the customs. While businesses seek to move goods faster in the supply chain at reduced costs, customs administrations are required to process increasing volumes of cargo with lesser reliance on physical intervention and with greater efficiency and speed, without compromising on its security, revenue collection, and enforcement responsibilities. In order to accomplish this, is an increasing need for the customs administration and businesses to collaborate with each other and with other stakeholders to ensure regulations, policies, and programs effectively respond to an ever-changing environment. A dynamic partnership is essential to drive innovation and economic growth opportunities and, at the same time, create a more cost-effective, efficient, and responsive customs administration. A port community system is a perfect enabler for this, an instrument that links operational and administrative processes, reusing data for both purposes, business to business and business to government, and the other way around. And the reuse of the existing information systems already in-house, creating transparency and reducing trade burdens. As IPCSA, we are just embarking on a global PCS study, which we have a specific section related to customs. If any participant is interested in supporting the development of the study, please contact us as IPCSA. You will find our addresses. I'm looking forward, ladies and gentlemen, to an interesting webinar full of information and a lively discussion afterwards. Thank you so much. And I hand over the mic now to our moderator of today, Mona Swoboda.
Thank you very much, Han.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Just quickly, was going to thank Hans and also acknowledge the important participation of Mr. Richard Morton, Secretary of IPCSA, in making this relationship, this productive relationship happens. I see Ricardo is there, and indeed, les frontières séparant, les unions rapprochantes, borders divide, custom connects. I think that's wonderful. And with that, Mona, please take the floor. Gentlemen, I will see you at the end in order to participate in the Q&A. Welcome, everyone, again, and thank you so much, Hans. Mona, the floor is yours.
Thank you again, Jorge, and thank you very much, Hans, for your warm welcome. My name is Mona Swoboda. I am Program Manager at the SIP, and I am delighted to moderate today's webinar and share the floor with such distinguished speakers. I'm very much looking forward to an interesting session. Without further ado, I would like to introduce our first panelist, Mr. Ricardo Revino Chapa, Deputy Secretary General of the World Customs Organization. Since January 2018, Ricardo has held the post of WCO Deputy Secretary General, where his current duties include leading the efforts to define and implement the WCO strategic plan for the period 2019 to 2020. In his role as Deputy Secretary General, he follows up on the correct implementation of said strategic plan, overseeing and coordinating efforts made by the organization's three mandates: compliance and facilitation, tariff and trade affairs, and capacity building. Prior to joining the WCO, Ricardo was appointed as General Administrator of Customs by the President of Mexico in 2015. And during his tenure in office, he promoted digitalization of custom procedures as well as cooperation with other border agencies and with customs administration of the country's main trading partners. Ricardo, we are honored to have you today, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mona. Good morning, good afternoon to everyone. Thank you very much for the introduction. I want to start by thanking as well the organizers. Thank you, Jorge, Hans, for your introduction today as well. And thanks, of course, to all the team of the Secretariat of the Inter-American Committee and, of course, of IPSA. Richard Morton as well, a dear friend, good to see you today. And colleagues of this panel, Uwe and Rommel, I look forward as well to hearing a bit of your perspective today. So glad to see everyone. And today I'm speaking to you from Brussels, where the headquarters of the WCO are. Here is the home of customs administrations, the WCO, the World Customs Organization. And I will briefly share a presentation now that I had prepared for you today. And just to start a little bit, because it might be that not everyone is familiar with what we do and what the WCO is. Just to give a little bit of background, the World Customs Organization is basically going to be 70 years old next year. We have one of our first let's say, events basically in after the Second World War, when the Europe needed to be reconstructed, and the first session of a committee for European customs cooperation was held in 1952. So yeah, next year we will have we'll be 70 years old already. Back then, also a committee for European economic cooperation was also formed in 1947, which today is known as the OECD, and of course GATT, which we all know, WTO currently. So these organizations were basically more or less around the same date formed, and back then it was only about 17 European members in the first session of this organization specialized in customs. A customs a customs council, cooperation council was held. Currently, we're 183 members. So we have grown a little bit from 17 to 183. And of course, we are a completely global organization. These 183 members represent approximately 99% of international trade. So we have a completely global perspective. And as has been mentioned already, we basically assist our customs administration's members
Sorry about that, Ricardo. I think you can proceed. Yes. Awesome.
Thanks.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
No worries. So yeah, I think I was thrown to a breakout session somehow, and now I'm back again here. So I'll just start again this part. Yep. So I was just saying about what we do in the organization. Basically, we have three main core functions. One is developing international standards. The second is to foster cooperation, and the third one is to build capacity. Among these three main functions that we follow up, and it's our mission to provide assistance and guidance to our members through these three core processes, is that we assist members, customs administrations, in facilitating legitimate trade, in securing fair revenue collection, and of course in the role of customs of protecting society, which is also one of the most important ones. So therefore the organization, this is a little bit a very broad summarize of what we do and how we engage as the official international voice, or the only international organization 100% focused on customs matters. Of course, regarding our main topic today, coordinated border management is top of our agenda, and it involves in everything. It involves in facilitation of trade. It also involves fair revenue collection, and it also involves protecting our societies. And when we talk about collaboration, of course, customs and ports collaboration is very relevant, very important. But as Jorge mentioned just a few moments ago, we still see there is much more to do. And although I think all the actors and although everyone knows that it is fundamental that we have a close cooperation and communication, I think we're still have some pending issues to discuss and to really align among both authorities. There is, in many cases, we have seen a lack of trust and cooperation between customs and ports. Sometimes there is even competition in some places, and this, of course, is basically because of the different natures that we have somehow. Of course, ports is basically more about economic development and promoting the flow of goods, which is also part of customs objectives. But customs, we have that issue on revenue collection, but especially on protection of society, that is still as a mandate provides us the obligation to interfere and be a bit more invasive regarding trade flow. So I think that this is part of something that we need to raise awareness and really align among both authorities. There is sometimes a duplication of data requirements and documentation. We need further cooperation, definitely, to stop duplicating and really benefit the economic operators. At the end, this is what we want. This is our main objective as well, and therefore we should find these common objectives even among our different roles. There is increased complexity in international trade, including, of course, higher logistics costs now. This is something to consider. Low level of awareness of the actual benefits from collaboration between the two agencies. Probably we need to really highlight success cases. We need to highlight concrete benefits. And probably we should start by really making, and this is part of the proposals that WCO together with the port communities working on really highlighting and success cases and best practices in customs and port collaboration. Of course, as many other things, given the modern economy, cyber threats are imminent and require a collaborative solution. And therefore, as many other threats, if we go in a single way, we won't face the threats or mitigate the risks as effective as possible if we do it together. Some of the WCO instruments that recognize and acknowledge this collaboration, of course, as I said, is our Collaboration Border Management Handbook, the CBM, which provides an overarching on principles of collaboration, being, of course, ports a very important part of it. CBM refers to a coordinated approach by border control agencies, both domestic and international, in the context of seeking greater efficiencies over managing trade and travel flows while maintaining a balance with compliance requirements, of course. So this is one of our main tools that we promote among our memberships to a better coordinated border management, including, of course, coordinating with ports. The single window, I would say, it's another of our tools, quite well acknowledged, mentioned, of course, in the TFA as well. And the single window basically is an environment, intelligent environment that facilitates trade and allows parties involved in trade and transport to standardize information, mainly electronic, with a single entry point to fulfill all import, export, and transit-related regulatory requirements. So the single window basically is the way how we implement our coordinated border management handbook. We're saying through the single window, we actually put in practice and we operationalize the coordinated border management concept by really sharing this point of entry and standardizing the information. Now, the standardization of the information, we provide WCO our data model. We enable this efficient exchange of information through harmonization of electronic data requirements. Basically, it's a common language for coordinated border management through the standardization of data. Definitely today, data is what we call the new gold in this era, and making the right use of data and standardizing data is a priority for customs administrations and for coordinated border management. So the use of data is quite relevant in our priorities currently, and the data model together with the single window is something that we're promoting for its implementation worldwide. And of course, we also have our SAFE framework of standards, which is one of the blueprints tools of the WCO to support customs and businesses to secure supply chains by creating a single set of international standards that will lead to uniformity and predictability. This results, of course, in benefits for both customs administrations and the economic operators. We have, of course, our tool as AEO, the authorized economic operator, that is how we really land and how we really operationalize this trust and this communication between private sector and customs authorities. The SAFE framework of standards is basically funded in 5 core elements. The first one being harmonizing advanced electronic information requirements. So again, information, as I said, is the new gold of modern era. And the more information we have, the better our risk assessment. And remember that in any case, customs administrations, or our core business is risk management. So the more information we have, the better our risk assessment, and therefore the better our results, and much more efficient we will be in allowing legal merchandise to flow, as well as protecting society and granting fair revenue collection. The second key element of the SAFE framework of standards will be risk management itself, after having the information, as I just said. And the third element is outbound inspection, where customs should conduct outbound security and safety inspections of high-risk cargo being exported through preferably using non-intrusive technology. But here we are turning the point into not only inspecting or assessing imports, but also exports, because at the end, the exports of one country will turn into imports of another country, and the risk needs to be shared. The fourth pillar would be a customs business partnership. And here, of course, we provide for each customs to establish a partnership with their private sector in order to involve them in ensuring the safety and security of the international supply chain. And then we have customs with other governmental agencies collaboration as another fifth pillar of our SAFE framework of standards, which is basically harmonizing border requirements to secure and facilitate the movement of legal goods crossing the border. So among these four main tools, we are basically promoting our coordinated border management solution and package for our 183 members. And what is new and what is ongoing in the WCO? Well, we are now harmonizing data requirements. You know, data analytics is a priority, not only for customs, but for many sectors. And therefore, we are aiming to publish our new version of compendium in later this year. And of course, a technical detail of implementation of our compendium and our data model solution. But also, we are now proposing to our permanent technical committee, which has its session next week, to develop guidelines regarding coordination with ports. So a concrete proposal in ports and customs collaboration guidelines to be developed in the coming months. If our permanent technical committee approves it, which I think will happen next week with our 183 members there discussing, we are foreseeing to have a global workshop for collecting members' practices to be held in late November in order to start drafting a first compendium of members' practices in collaboration with ports. So we look forward to further collaboration, of course, with our colleagues of ports authorities. And now I finish with this, since I think we are just in time with the agenda. And I, of course, remain available at the end of the discussion of my colleagues panelists for any suggestion or question about it. Thank you very much, Mona, and the floor is back to you.
Thank you very, very much, Ricardo, for your most excellent and informative and very precise presentation. I think the information you shared is very useful for us here today, and I'm looking forward to picking your brain a little bit later in the Q&A. So thank you again very much, Ricardo. Up next, we have Uwe Liebschner. He is customs expert at DBH Logistics in Bremen, Germany, and the Customs Committee Chairman at IPCSA. A former official at the German Customs Administration, Uwe has over 20 years experience in private sector consulting for customs and foreign trade at DBH Logistics in Bremen, Germany, which is the company that developed and operates the port community system for Bremen, Bremerhaven, and Wilhelmshaven in Germany. Here he is involved in the design of the processes around the logistic handling and the cross-border movement of goods. Uwe is, as I mentioned earlier, also the chairman of the IPCSA Customs Committee, where he represents the association at various international meetings and events, including the working groups of the European Union Commission in Brussels. Uwe, herzlich willkommen. We're looking forward to your presentation. The floor is yours.
Yeah, danke. Thank you very much, Mona, for the nice introduction and the warm words. And it's an easy turn now for me to step into the discussion because the previous speakers have already started my journey, what I like to continue now and spinning the wheel in the sense of talking today about the cooperation between customs and ports and logistics in general. So thank you very much for the possibility to contribute with my thoughts to the actual discussions in your region. My remarks are more of a general nature to underline the importance of today's topic. Since I'm not a native speaker, please allow me to read from my prepared notes. So let's start. I'm pretty sure that you all know speeches from Fidel Castro. They were nearly every time about 6 hours long, so be prepared to listen for the upcoming at least 6 hours to my presentation now. Let's have a look. Where is it? I'm just looking for my presentation. Sorry. No. There you go. There we go. There you go. No. I lost my presentation. That is great. Good start.
That's no worries, Uwe. You have warned us about the 6 upcoming hours. So no.
I hope can you see it now?
I can see your files. I can see that you're going to open a PowerPoint.
Is it now there?
I see all your files.
No, I still see your list of files.
There is one on top, which is the IPCSA IAP 2021. Is that the one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. I stop it again and I try to come in again. There we are. Now
yes, we see it. Excellent.
Yeah. So yeah.
Thank you, sir.
So that's why I used to say, don't digitize the human resources. All right, I come in again, so sorry for that. First, I would like to invite you to go on a short journey in order to get a common understanding about the situation we are talking about today. Let's start our trip with a rough look at the tasks facing the logistics industry, the current worldwide supply bottlenecks and the associated stagnation in the availability of goods clearly show us how strong global networking is in everyday's life and how extremely the time factor dominates our economic fate due to increasing demands of effectivity and efficiency. It will not surprise you when I mention buzzwords such as 24/7 principle or delivery on time, or even more dramatic, delivery on sequence, as well as the explosive growth in e-commerce. These requirements or situations pose immense challenges, organizational challenges for logistics. It should not be forgotten that in the emerging age of the next industrial phase, Industry 4.0, the demands on the time factor and the smooth flow of the delivery of goods are becoming more and more important. Last but not least, there is of course the question of costs and resources. It is also not new knowledge that the topic of effectivity and efficiency also affects logistics, and that every possibility of reducing burdens has a positive impact on the overall process. How does that fit into the discussions of today's webinar, the interaction between customs and port industry? Please allow me to put the focus now on the core mandate of the customs administrations in order to be able to get a clear idea of the role of customs in that respect. I don't want to exceed the time frame. That's why I would like to limit myself to the tasks or mandates that are most important for our discussion today. Of course, I do not want to leave them uncommented, but rather to put them in the context of our reflections. The priorities of customs administrations have changed in the recent years to the effect that safety and security now play a leading role. On the other hand, governments are undoubtedly interested in securing prosperity for society and thus also in setting the course for trade facilitation or intensifying efforts in this area. I believe that it is nevertheless completely indisputable that the necessary level of controls and monitoring must not be called into question in this context. However, since speed and volume are increasing, customs administrations are also faced with the challenge of constantly adapting their activities to fulfill their tasks in the best possible way, but also not to slow down the flow of goods. Of course, simplifications resulting from customs legislation are helpful in order to make the process smoother and faster. But the legal text is one thing, and the practical implementation and handling is another. The current events of the pandemic in particular call for increased commitment to the digitalization of processes and infrastructure. In the last few years, long before the pandemic, by the way, customs administrations have gone into action and invested extensively in electronic solutions. These deserves respect at this point and can be recognized as a significant contribution to the modernization of the supply chain. Now we have the question in front of us, is everything solved now sufficiently? In the mass of efforts, very often one crucial issue is not treated with the right respect. What I mean is cooperation. Everyone involved in the overall process has his own interests and tasks. That's fine. And it is exactly the reason why a good functioning community should think together about the development of its ecosystem. Of course, in this cooperation, it is not possible to find 100% solutions for all participants in every constellation. That is due to the nature of the individual areas of responsibility. Since, among many other players, the customs administration plays an extremely important role for effective operations in the port. Close cooperation here is an obvious guarantor of quality. Various decision-making lines come together in the port business. Among others, the logistical go and the final go, or unfortunately no go, from the part of the governmental entities who have to decide on the movement of imported or exported goods. With regard to the import and export, it is customs that puts the pieces of the authorities' puzzle together and releases the goods with its overall decision. This can happen in various ways. However, we are here today to talk about effective solutions and speed. And this should, of course, be valid for the entire port community. So how can another dimension of effective process flow be created? The introduction of electronic processing systems on the government side is an important contribution, like, for instance, single window that was also mentioned by Ricardo before. However, in order to make smart use of the range of what is possible, the topic of linking the data flow should clearly be placed in the considerations in such a way that it should be one of the driving elements. A closer look on the Logistic Performance Index, which is made up of opinions of 600 largest logistic players in the world of the World Bank, shows an interesting situation. Amongst the first ranked countries, you will find an overwhelming number of those who have fully integrated process flows established and, surprisingly, also PCSs in operation. Don't get me wrong, the world moves on also without these activities, but it should be clear that the exercise of digitalization and improving the process flows is closely linked to port community systems or trade single windows. A look at our history in the ports of Bremen shows that from day one, alongside terminals, the freight forwarders, shipping lines, and many others in the private sector, customs was involved on the government side and played a very significant role in shaping the PCS map and still does. The advantages of PCS are obvious, as the name suggests, port community systems. So I would like to highlight here the community in the name. All stakeholders are involved and get their part of the process mapped and supported by data exchange and status models. This, of course, works all under agreed rules and in line with data protection and the right governance model, as well as compliance with legal requirements. A word about PCS activities. These are to be seen as accelerators for the overall handling in the port. They act as data hubs and ultimately distribute the data received once for the respective process to the concerned players involved and return the answers to the players intended in the status model. PCS also act as converter tools to make the life more easy with respect to different data formats and message types. PCS are guarantors of transparency, and since they are jointly defined by the entire community, are respected as trusted partners by all parties. It should also always be clear that it is not about reinventing the wheel. It is not about replacing existing systems or even taking over the activities of others. I would like to emphasize this clearly once again. It is about the coordination of those involved, working out the necessary status model and mapping it in such a way that the landscape is created through an extensive connection of the systems that allows plenty of room for an effective and efficient flow of goods without being at the disadvantage of monitoring and security. So please allow me at the end to give you a short conclusion. Due to the time limit today, please allow me now to conclude my experiences in 3 bullet points. First, collaboration, cooperation is the key to get everyone on board and to create the right modern environment for an effective port, and based on this, an attractive environment for trade and thus the increase of economic activities. Second, customs is one of the most crucial players when it comes to cross-border movement of goods. And it must be a part of the discussions from the beginning on. It makes no sense to create a break in the exchange flow of the respective data when there is an interest to enhance the effectivity and efficiency of logistics and to attract investors. Customs decisions are not only of interest for declarants or representatives, or at the end for the consignees. The pace in the movement of goods is also a matter of the right information at the right time amongst all players in the port. Third, the aim of a PCS or trade single window is not to replace existing systems. It's more to create a sufficient landscape of electronic infrastructure and exchange mechanisms to link the administrative processes with the operation of all stakeholders involved. So thank you for your patience and your interest and listening to me. I'm happy to answer then questions later on, and maybe also I'm able to give you some examples out of the practical business in the later discussion. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Uwe, and thank you for staying just shy under the 6 hours. No, this was a very insightful presentation, and like you said earlier, we're looking forward to a fruitful discussion later on in the Q&A. I would like to take this opportunity to remind the participants of our webinar that you can ask away through the chat. We will gather the questions and then ask our experts later on in the Q&A. Thank you again very much, Uwe. Now, last but most definitely not least, I would like to give the floor to Mr. Rommel Edwards, Manager of the Digital Innovation and Development Department at Barbados Port Inc., short BPI. Having worked over 20 years with BPI, Rommel is responsible for the development, deployment, and once implemented, maintenance of the Barbados Port Community System. Under Rommel's guidance, BPI has already deployed key components with the aim of integration into the Barbados PCS, and I'm sure we can discuss that as well later. Rommel has also been fundamental in the development work on the Barbados Maritime Single Window, the BPI's e-payment platform, as well as an enhanced cargo tracking facility. And in the context of the establishment of a Barbados PCS project, I have the pleasure of working with Rommel and his excellent team, and I am so in awe of their commitment and devotion to Barbados Port Inc. becoming a change maker in the region's port sector. So after these broad and very insightful presentations we've heard from Uwe and Ricardo, I'm now very much looking forward to going into the case of Barbados. So Rommel, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you for the introduction, Mona. Good morning to all. You can see my presentation?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right, good morning to all. Thanks for the introduction. And I'm going to give you, over the next 20 minutes or so, just an experience from a layman's point of view, my 23 odd years in the port. And it's not any classroom, any textbook, just from my own personal experience, the experiences of my team as well. So let's start with a bit of fun facts about Barbados Port Inc. We are most of our inbound cargo, 90% of it comes through the port. These are some other fun facts here as well. And on to customs. So these are some fun facts about customs as well. They have implemented ASCUDA in various stages. I actually had the pleasure of working with them in implementing the interchange between ASCUDA data and BPI's data. So from my experience, where we are addressing the issues of collaboration, where we're addressing the issues of efficiency, they can be divided into 3 pillars, which I will get into shortly, but this is, again, an amalgamation of my experience along with my team. So the first of these pillars is the legislation. So we have multiple pieces of legislation which apply to port and customs in Barbados. Some of the legislation is old and it was designed with the sole purpose of governing the respective entities. So we have the Customs Act and the Port Act, and these are the older of the 2 legislations I have up on the slide, and these were designed with the purpose of governing those entities. There are aspects of these acts that are not aligned, and this has brought about some challenges. So, for example, the timelines for vessel arrivals, for vessel departures, for manifest submission, they vary between the Port and Customs Act and even the Immigration Act, which is beyond the scope of this presentation, but there are variances between the acts. We do have newcomers to the table. So there are the Data Protection and Electronic Transactions Acts, which recognize electronic data. And that is a fundamental difference between these newer acts and the older ones. These acts recognize electronic data. I do know there are some ongoing amendments to the Customs Act. I do not recall if they're complete or not. And I believe they're going to address electronic data as well. But as it stands right now, the Data Protection Act and the Electronic Transactions Act recognize this electronic data, and the older acts do not. There's also an act that's upcoming which will govern our maritime single window, and it's called the Facilitation of International Maritime Traffic Act. This will seek to address some of the gaps between the customs processes and the port processes and the other players as well, immigration, port health. But this act only goes as far as the MSW is concerned. The technology, we cannot state enough how crucial the technology is. It plays an essential role in addressing the challenges and improving efficiency for both port, Barbados Port, and customs. Due to individual requirements of each stakeholder, the legislations of each entity, stakeholders are required to submit repetitive information to each entity. So you will find vessels coming to the island, they're bringing cargo or passengers or whatever, and there is this multitudinous flow of information. It's just the same repetitive information you have to submit to various entities. So there's an ongoing move to develop various systems to address this. So we have the maritime single window. We have our own local trade single window, which we call the electronic single window, ESW. And as Mona mentioned earlier, we are in the process of developing our port community system. And these systems will seek to introduce a common repository for information storage and sharing among ports and customs. They will introduce some disruptive technologies. So we have been looking at blockchain. We have been, blockchain we can use to guarantee the authenticity of data, to regard that data as a single source of truth. We can track all changes to that data, transfers of custody with that data. We have also been looking into artificial intelligence, and this, it is not meant to replace the human being. It's not meant to replace your workers, but it aids, and it aids tremendously. It can reduce the amount of time taken to perform routine tasks, which can result in improved turnaround times and increased throughput. We have been looking into IoT as well, Internet of Things, and this expands computer capabilities beyond your usual, PC and laptop. So you can think beyond these devices. We are introducing things like, we already have the mobile phones, but imagine smart watches, imagine smart TVs, imagine drones and robotics. Nothing is off limits. We have been looking into big data analytics. These provide business intelligence. So both customs and ports can now make accurate decisions. And this is based on past data as well as predictive models. The cloud computing, we have already crossed that frontier. We do have a cloud-based terminal operating system, and there are other systems that we will be developing as well. The PCS will be cloud-based. This cloud computing removes the physical and chronological fences that define our workplace. So by the physical, So for instance, when you come to work, once you cross through that gate, you are defined as being at work. The chronological fence, when I speak to that, I mean your work times. So, you start work at this time, you end work at such a time. The removal of these fences means that any task that you have to perform can be done regardless of where you're located or regardless of the time of day. And just to share a short memory, I was in Santiago attending a trade and technology meeting, and that was in 2019. And I was seated right next to the superintendent of customs in Bahamas, and she was there clearing cargo that had been escalated to her, and it was escalated to her by members of the terminal down there. And she was next to me in this meeting, flipping through pictures and clearing this cargo right next to me. She showed me the software and everything. And I thought, wow, this is really something that, while, it was a wow factor back then, this is something that should be the norm and should be the future. So this is where cloud computing contributes. We need to engage in a paradigm shift. This is tantamount. So we all work for customs, or we all work for a port, or we all work for some entity. And rather than just leave it there, we need to go beyond this box. We need to collectively see ourselves as a team and working for a mutual benefit and ultimately the benefit of our respective countries. And even here in the Caribbean, we can extend this to the region. We can make the region a force to reckon with on that worldwide playing field. Our ease of doing business index can be greatly improved by this shift in thinking. We are all a team and we are only as strong as our weakest link. Collaboration is a must. There could be customer-centric issues spotted by members of the port or vice versa. Collaboration quickly identifies and mitigates or even eliminates these hurdles. There is always room for growth and improvement. There's always room. Continuous collaboration and review provides the environment to nurture improvement and foster this growth. Yours Kirsten, he is the general manager of Netsport USA, and he did a presentation in a webinar called Port Performance, Innovating Toward Efficiency. And he said, you are only as good as the information and data flowing in. And I firmly believe that, because your data is what matters the most. So just another fun fact, UNCTAD had produced a technology and innovation report for 2021, and they named all of these big technologies that they're currently worth about $350 million now, 350 billion dollars now. These technologies include AI, big data, Internet of Things, blockchain, 3D printing, robotics, drones, gene editing, nanotechnology, 5G, solar PV. Most of these, if not all, but certainly most of these have implications for ports and customs and the greater maritime community. In another 4 to 5 years, this billion-dollar wave is expected to balloon thousands of times to its size into a trillion-dollar wave. This is about 3.2 million or so. Smaller and medium-sized countries should not miss this wave at all. The larger countries are capitalizing on it, and the smaller and medium-sized countries should not miss it. Ports and customs should come together and play a crucial role in the country's ability to ride this wave. And just another fun fact, the 15th session of the UNCTAD Quadrennial Ministerial Conference was hosted virtually here in Barbados in October, and it was under the theme From Inequality and Vulnerability to Prosperity for All. Barbados happens to be the smallest nation to host the event. We are the first in the Caribbean to host it, and we are also the first worldwide to host it virtually. Best practices, and again, these are just my very layman experiences, once more those of my team as well. From experience, we have realized that the best practices can be grouped into 2 actions: create and agree. We should create memorandums of understanding, which are, these are like a gentleman's agreement to commit to certain objectives. We should engage in continuous review. You never rest on your laurels. You never become complacent. You always make sure that review and conversations are constructive. Remember, this is all about us and as a big team, and not about one of us pointing fingers at the other. We should settle for nothing less than a bidirectional flow of information. Last but by no means least is the cybersecurity framework. And this, happens to be the avenue that both, me and my department, this is what we specialize in. The cybersecurity framework is tantamount. We have to create one, not just at the port or customs level, but an all-encompassing one. Most of the things we work with are replaceable, even at a huge expense. So the buildings that we work in, the expensive networks, infrastructure, the servers that we require, all of these are replaceable. The specialized equipment that both ports and customs invest in, these are replaceable. The one commodity that is irreplaceable is the data. In our present world, and it was said earlier, data, some people say there's a new gold, some people say data is the new oil. The fact is that this is what cybercrime actors are after. They aren't really interested in your equipment, they want the data. And the more data they have access to, the better armed they are and the more crippled we would become. So given all of the connected systems and single window platforms, the port can become breached, for example, and cause customs to be vulnerable to attack, or it could happen the other direction. So the establishment of cybersecurity frameworks is a must. The establishment of cybersecurity policies supporting these frameworks, these can effectively limit the extent of the possible damage, and in some cases, prevent it altogether. We must also agree to establish discrete points of contact. So if event A happens, we know we can go to person A or person B. We are not scrambling trying to figure out who we should go to. These persons should have clear responsibilities. We should also support initiatives. So if someone thinks outside the box, they come up with something radical, give them the audience, give them the floor, and hear the ideas, because you never know. If someone, for instance, they come and they speak of a technology, don't think of it as a threat. Think of it, try to look at it as a way to help. As I would have said already, continuous collaboration should also be encouraged. One conversation will not, make a huge difference. So you have to maintain these conversations. There have to be a series of these conversations. You'll see I have a quote in the upper left-hand corner, and there is a youngster. Unfortunately, he died at the age of 13, but he had wisdom way beyond his age. And his name is Matthew Joseph Thaddeus Stepanek, and he's known to all as Matty. But he left behind an assemblage of quotes spread across 7 best-selling books. Some of these publications are actually listed on the New York Times. The particular quotes that caught my eye were his quotes about peace and coexistence and unity. And the quote that I've chosen here, that we can all see, is the one that pretty much envelops and encompasses all that, we as ports and as customs officials wish to address. And on that note, folks, that is the end of my presentation, and feel free to reach out, feel free to contact me. I'm available for your questions. Back to you, Mona.
Thank you so much, Ramel. Congratulations on an excellent presentation. Very insightful, and it's wonderful to hear your and your team's experience from the field. So I'm sure there will be more questions later on in the Q&A. And I thought it was nice to see how all 3 of our speakers emphasized the importance of collaboration. And in that spirit, let's kick off our Q&A session. I would like to invite all 3 speakers. Uwe, Ricardo, Ramel is on the screen already. So I invite you all back to the Q&A session. And I would also like to, again, remind our audience that you may now ask away in the chat. Ricardo, I received first question for you, I got it through a direct message here. Ricardo, could you briefly describe for us the difference between a foreign trade single window and a maritime single window?
Oh, thank you, Mona, for this. Well, basically, I would say the technology could be even the same, or the concept could be even the same. One, of course, as it says, as it states, the foreign trade single window would be for a comprehensive or holistic approach of border agencies. That's how we basically conceptualize it. The single window for all the governmental agencies that participate somehow in the flow of goods or have some actions to perform in the border. The maritime version of a single window, I would suppose, would be something similar, but exclusively focused to the maritime part. However, for us, the concept of single window should be enlarged as much as possible, and trying to cover the whole or the complete number of authorities that are participating in the flow of goods in the border. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you for clarifying that, Ricardo, and again for the emphasis on the holistic stakeholder engagement here in this context. Uwe, in your presentation, you've described the importance of cooperation and the linkage between customs and the PCS. Could you give us a short example, maybe in the context of IPCSA, and an example from the field? And how do you see, based on your experience, the relevance of best practice discussions and benchmarking around that topic?
Yeah, thank you very much, Mona. Now I'm going to fill up to 6 hours with a huge list of examples. So first of all, it should be clear that when we are talking about examples from the field, then of course it can be a totally variation of different activities around different ports. But what we are more or less presented today is how to make it effective, efficient. And in each and every of that discussions, there is a clear aim or a clear direction of how to get more automatical flows or more automatization into the port business. And looking now on examples from Europe or also from Asian ports, then we have a kind of a cooperative construction between pre-clearancing processes for customs. Means the whole of the risk management has already done, and we have a data available for customs in their systems to make already the right decisions. And then when the goods really arrive and are presented to customs, I'm pretty sure the guys who are now familiar with the customs flow and the customs steps, they know what I'm talking about. Then it is possible to link that two informations then easily together and have a release based on the decisions made by customs already in the systems without stopping the whole flow. That means really at the time of unloading the box from the vessel, hitting the quayside, the trigger element in the overall system coming from the terminal operation system into the PCS environment, and then going further on to give the right information to customs and so on. So that might be a general example, but then I can also list and to give you a short example on the transparency of PCSs. And that is really a practical one out of the field. One of the consignees was asking us in our port in Bremerhaven, they called us and said, we got the information from our forwarder that there is a huge delay in our consignment, around about more than 1 week or 10 days. What is really not acceptable. And they said to us, they blamed customs for stopping out the goods because of holding them for controls. What happened at the end was that we took a short look into the PCS environment and into all the steps of what the different players in the port did. And it came out that it was not customs, because the information from customs was, or the release information from customs was in the system after 6 minutes. Means customs was not the stopping agency. What was really the reason behind the whole thing was that the shipping line has changed their journey, and they stopped the further on movement of the feeder ship because of having other plans with the currently planned feeder ship. So they decided to switch that container to a later feeder ship, and that's why the box was delayed for more than 1 week. But this information was not handed over from the shipping line to the forwarder. And at the end, the consignee was happy about the information because he was then in a clear position how to negotiate then with the other players in the whole flow. But again, at the end, it was not customs. So now as I said, I'm going to fill up the 6 hours. You asked another part of the question, that means benchmarking and best practice. So Rommel was, that's nice to create already a list for me of best practices. That is fine. But I'm going now to play the bad boy and taking a more critical view on that discussions around best practice and benchmarking. When we are talking about PCSs and port environment, then it has to be clear that it is a very individual project. And you have to figure out what is the real need in your local environment, in your local ecosystem. So it's more to understand the principle behind the whole thing. Cooperation, communication, linkage of the systems, and so on and so forth. And then go for really working on the tailor-made solution for your local environment. And that's why I'm not a big fan personally of when it comes to that discussion of show us benchmarks, show us best practices. It's always good to have examples, that's true. And I don't want to destroy now here the workflow of the companies and how to set up a project. But at the end of the day, again, look into the needs of your local environment. So I can now talk for hours, but I stop here.
Thank you very much. We can see that you're very passionate about what you do, and we appreciate that. And I think you made a very relevant point. Best practices and forums such as this, where we can share our experiences, are of course an integral part. However, as you correctly and importantly point out, the PCS is really a very tailored tool for the port, and so is also, you know, the collaboration, the relationship with customs. You know, that can be different in every country, and so you really have to go case by case. So I really appreciate the point you're making here. Rommel, you've mentioned cybersecurity being integral in the collaborative efforts between ports and customs. There's still this belief that cyber and cyber risk, cyber resilience is strictly the responsibility of the respective IT departments. What is your response to this?
So my response to that is that we are as strong as our weakest link. You know, computer systems, you know, they consist of the hardware, they consist of the software, but they also consist of the users. Cyber actors will attack the weakest link. So you have instances where, for instance, they will leave something as simple as a USB drive on someone's desk. They don't know what this device is, and they go and plug it into their computer, and boom, the actor is on your network. So it is the responsibility of everyone. It is, we require due care and due diligence on the part of everyone in the organization, because the cyber actor is not going to attack trained personnel. They're going to go after untrained personnel. So it is best that we train everyone, we upskill everyone. And there are several instances where this has occurred, where this has been exploited. So this is why I would say to anyone at all that this cyber responsibility is a company-wide responsibility, is an organization-wide responsibility.
Thank you, Ramel. And that also goes in line with what you said earlier in your presentation about the PCS being more than an IT project or an IT tool. It is more a change management initiative, and of course the cybersecurity component is also part of that change in security culture. So I really appreciate your insight there. Ricardo, in your presentation earlier, you mentioned the need, or when talking about an improved or an efficient, effective collaboration between ports and customs, you mentioned the need to highlight the benefits of this collaboration. Could you share with us what these are and how we can best achieve them?
Sure, thank you, Mona. Well, I think that the benefits, of course, are in different layers and different perspectives. I think for customs administrations, the benefits would be very clear in this collaboration by gathering again and more information to perform better risk management, therefore allowing to fulfill its objectives on a better way regarding revenue collection, protection of society, and of course, facilitating the flow of goods. I think for ports authorities, there is clear benefits as well on gathering information as well, so that they can also provide better service and of course facilitate as well the flow of such merchandise. So I think there are concrete benefits there. But the most concrete benefit would be, I think, for the operators, for the economic operators themselves, the importers or exporters that are moving the merchandise, seeing the costs reduced in the way of accelerating the flow of their own merchandise, and also by having much more certainty on what is going to happen with their merchandise. This is all about also providing the customers with predictability. We have to have transparent processes, but also we have to be predictable in a way that this creates certainty for potential exporters and importers in the flow of their merchandise. So I think that at the end, we would have benefits in the different layers of economic development, of course, security and safety, and also, of course, in the part of our objectives regarding revenue collection and so on. So I think there are tangible benefits there. Of course, in any case, there are ways to measure performance, to measure impact, but there are tangible benefits that can be felt, I think, for all the actors in this cooperation together.
Thank you, Ricardo. So the benefit is for all. It's a win-win-win, a win for customs, for ports, and as you said, for the customers, the clients.
Yes,
you,
indeed. In my view, it is. Thank you.
No, excellent. Thank you. Uwe, back to you. Let's take a brief look into the near future. Where do you see some of the challenges in the global supply chain where cooperation between customs and PCSs should become more important and valuable for both sides?
Yeah, thank you. Before I'm going to answer that question, please allow me to give 2 additional remarks on the previous speakers, or on what you have said about really looking on a local environment. That will be short. So I said tailor-made solutions for the local environment, yes, it has to be clear also that there is nothing off the shelf what you can really buy and create your PCS out of this easily. So again, it's really an individual project. Then in a reaction to Ramal and cybersecurity, I fully agree with him, but I would like to add that we should invite all the players again in the port environment to think together about what is really for your country, for each and every country, crucial and critical infrastructure. And that is not only the port itself, it is everything what is connected to that. And you should have in each and every country a clear idea of how to set up the right crisis and disaster management when it comes also to the discussions around port communities, single windows, and so on. So only to add to that. Now back to the question, future challenges. Yeah, I can of course now create again general things like what we have already presented today, like speeding up the processes, giving a clear improvement in the time factor of delivering the goods and so on. I don't want to stress them again, but what I see more from the practical view is we should work together also in the cooperation with customs services around the globe on how we can set up a very good configuration of a smooth release process, having single windows on the administration side in place and connecting them to or using also pre-clearancing mechanisms and connecting them the whole of the status informations and triggers in that way that the whole thing is really smooth and fast. The future, I think it's not a surprise that you all may heard and know about data pipelines and different initiatives of how to exchange data worldwide cross-border. And that is, I think, in the private sector, really a big topic, but on the side of customs administrations, it's in the beginning phase. And that could be more of relevance for future, that there is a closer cooperation, especially also with PCSs, because only to mention here, one initiative out of our association is the Network of Trusted Network, where PCSs are going to exchange data worldwide amongst each others. And maybe it could be a good idea to get customs administrations on board to have an open dialogue on that, how to use that mechanism also for better risk management and better pre-information and pre-data. That's the one thing. And then, of course, also practical things like monitoring solutions for the ports means the records of the different terminals, also with respect to free zone monitoring, that could be easily organized or better organized via having PCSs around. And last but not least, another example, the connection of the hinterlands. Sometimes it's simply a fact of geographical matters, but also of speeding up because of bringing the goods out of the port into the hinterland distribution. And how to, from the viewpoint of customs, that is, of course, which creates a nightmare and bad sleep for customs officers, how to control now that movements from the ports into the hinterland in a fast manner by not losing really the surveillance on it. And this is also a kind where PCSs can help by being connected to the customs systems and having then an easy monitoring system of the so-called monitored corridors. So I will stop here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Uwe. A very elaborate response to a bit of a tricky question. So, Ramal, back to you. You and your colleagues here today. We've spoken about technology and its importance for port modernization efforts. However, there are those who see this technological development, port modernization as a threat to their existing jobs. What advice do you have for these people?
So in my 20 plus years at the port, I have not seen the technology eliminate anyone. And there are those who have, jumped on the wave early o'clock and they have become experts in their fields. And there are two instances that I would love to share. We have a current situation now where we have tablets, so we have wireless devices, smart devices deployed in our warehouses, in our sheds, and the people who use them were not necessarily technologically savvy. At least, there were some of them who we had to train, but again, the appeal of this new tech and stuff, they started to use it. So we now have like this ongoing inventory going on in our warehouses that is completely real time. It is instantaneous. And we have been able to leverage that to notify our consignees instantaneously of the availability of their cargo. And had it not been for these people embracing the technology instead of being afraid of it, then we wouldn't be where we are now. There's another instance where it is one of our stakeholders and we visited their warehouse, and it was a similar thing. They introduced these wireless devices again to help with their inventory. And the lady who was demonstrating the software to us and demonstrating how they use the barcoding, she was actually a janitor. And yeah, she was actually a janitor. And she probably displayed this cargo inventory, and we were walking through the aisles in the warehouse and stuff. And it was only at the end that she told us what she used to do. We were blown out of the water by that. So never forget her. So the technology is not the end, it is the means to the end, right? It's the bridge to where we want to get to. It is a very crucial bridge. It makes no sense trying to, circumvent it or get around it. But it is, I always tell people, it is the tool that you will need.
Excellent. I fully agree with you. And Uwe said something earlier also along the lines, don't digitalize the human resource. So excellent remarks from Mel, really appreciate it. I see there are no further questions in the chat. So it looks like you gentlemen have just been so clear and precise in your presentations that there are no further questions. I would just like to, again, thank you three very much for your different perspectives that you shared with us today. I think we all learned quite a lot, and this was a very fruitful and important session, I believe, and having you all sit here together and share your experiences really has been very enriching. So it was an honor for me to be here with you today, and I'll say thank you again and pass over the mic to Jorge and Hans, of course.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mona. Thank you very much for doing this moderation. And indeed, thank you to Ricardo, thank you to Uwe and Romel for three very, like Mona was saying, they're very precise representations, and they present three different perspectives of how things can be done. Ricardo, I have a message from a mutual friend, Jose Garcia Sanginés, Jose Martin Garcia Sanginés, who was here. He says hello, and I'm supposed to write up on that later on, but I wanted to highlight a little bit before giving the floor to Hans for concluding thoughts about the common thread. The common thread that Mona and you have mentioned this, in fact, cooperation / collaboration. Nobody can pull this cart by themselves. We all need help. The triple win was mentioned, the win for ports, win for customs, win for the customer, win for the country, win for the competitiveness of that port. This is incredibly important. The traceability of cargo, especially when things in customs terms. And I think that the pandemic has, in some ways or another, pushed or accelerated certain digitalization plans and operations that ports and other agencies had in mind. And this is, again, where the relationship between customs and ports becomes essential. Like Ricardo was saying, traditionally, and there has been a lack of collaboration, perhaps some even animosity, and there are two different agencies that depend from two different ministries. So sometimes, and I've been, they draw a line on the sand and you shall not pass it. And this is obviously not the attitude that we want. We want that productive relationship. The both agencies are working in pro of the country and in pro of competitiveness and efficiencies, and it's a win all around. I remain, gentlemen, attentive to organizing more events, trying to bring customs and ports together next year. And in fact, let me tell you that the SIB is about to sign, probably at the end of this year, beginning of the next one, a memorandum of understanding with La Dirección General de Aduanas, the Direction General of Customs of the Dominican Republic, in order to provide training so that we can sort of cross-fertilize ports and customs. And so this is an idea that we thought about. And anyway, Uwe, thank you very much, my friend. I think Fidel Castro has just nothing on you at all. And thank you very much for that excellent presentation. Again, very concise, with a point of view of, of the technology side, the PCS side, and a bit of the human component there as well, the cybersecurity that needs to be in place, the collaboration needs to be in place, and Rommel, also the PCS in Barbados, which is an initiative that the SIP is actually supporting, as you know, which is where you and Mona are colleagues on the development of the Barbados PCS, which is notwithstanding Kingston, I think, in Jamaica, I think it'll be a really the new player on the block in the Caribbean, especially in the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, I believe. So, gentlemen and Mona, thank you very much. I'm going to now pass on the floor to Hans for some concluding thoughts. Hans, my friend, adelante.
Yes, my dear friend Jorge, thank you very much for the end note you made. I fully agree with you. The session was a very good one, very specific. Well, you see there's a lot of know-how between all three, Ricardo from WCO, Uwe, which we admire his spirit always. We're talking about customs when he is in IPCSA in our meetings, and so precise and know actual everything about that. And Ronald, appreciate very much, especially noted the change management, change management, the stakeholders. That's also my profession, actually, when you look at PCS developments, because the people behind the business are the most important and the critical ones to make things work. So very good. Thank you very much. Of course, Paula, thank you for organizing everything. You see my background, maybe that's the evening, not the evening in Netherlands, although it is the evening in Netherlands, but it's Curacao, so it's quite near to you, Rommel. So I hope to be able to visit next year the Caribbean area to find ways to visit also Barbados. Let's see where it's possible. And last but not least, of course, my dear Mona, thank you very much for moderating and having let's say, all those chickens together and keep them where they have to be. And it was a very precise and very good conference. Thank you so much, everybody, for attending. Thank you.
Indeed, Hans, and thank you to everyone in the audience. I've spotted port authorities from several Latin American and Caribbean countries participating there and listening in. I had a couple of private chats with some of them. And so this is a very important event. We had about 100 participants from, we'll get the list at the end and we'll publish it in the website. But I think we're somewhere between around 15 countries between the English speaking and the Spanish speaking countries. So this was an excellent convocatoria, bringing people together for these issues. Let me remind, as I thank all the participants and the speakers and Paola and our strategic partner, Real ID, for the technological support here in Zoom, that the recording of this webinar, as well as the presentations given by the three speakers, will be available in the portal, in the portalcip.org. So portalcip.org, portalcip.org. And I again thank the panelists for their knowledge, for sharing their expertise, and for their time. Gentlemen, please stay on the line for a few more seconds as I say goodbye to the audience. Thank you very much. We still have more activities in November. Keep an eye out for them. And again, thank you, everyone. And post, and thank you, everyone. Goodbye now.
Thank you, everyone, and saludos a José Martín también. Gracias, Jorge.
Lo voy a decir.
Thank you, Ricardo. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, and bye. Greetings from Germany. Bye.
Bye, Mr.
Thank
Lord.
you all. Thank you.
Real ID is a passionate and committed team. Through entertainment technology, we contribute to our clients' social and professional development. We offer a comprehensive service that responds to new challenges and has established our active international presence. We provide our clients with the right balance between their needs and our platform's optimal performance. We seek precise solutions for the continued use of legacy systems and, where appropriate, development of required applications. Real ID has grown thanks to the port and maritime industry's safety and security needs. Each of our modules are managed by a simulated artificial intelligence called Sole, capable of learning scenarios and finding solutions according to the end user's requirements.